Okay, so we established the fact that we need to consider the research and development cost as well. So what we will do is, sir, please understand something. Sir, we need to fix the sales price at the beginning of the production process itself, right? At the introduction stage itself, we need to fix the selling price. Otherwise, we'll not be able to sell in the market without knowing a price to sell. So what I need to do is, during initially launch phase itself, when we are launching the product itself, we would need the price per unit. So what I need to do is, under life cycle cost per unit, okay, to calculate life cycle cost per unit, I need to do a lot of assumptions. Lots of assumptions are involved because I need to know calculate the price at the beginning itself. So what I'll do is, estimated lifetime costs of the product, estimated lifetime costs divided by estimated number of units produced over the lifespan. I am calculating the cost incurred at research and development, introduction phase, growth phase, maturity phase, decline phase, all the different types of costs. I am assuming at the beginning of the period itself, estimating it and dividing by the estimated number of units to calculate the estimated lifetime cost of a unit. You know what happens because of this? What happens under the normal phases? First, let's understand that. If I'm going with the traditional costing techniques, marginal absorption or ABC, whatever it is, what do you think the cost pattern will be? So during the introduction phase, during the launch phase, now what happens is my cost per unit would be very high. Sir, why, sir? Because of the fact that I'm new to the market, I'm not yet optimized my procedures. I haven't yet functioning at my efficiency levels, like the capacity levels. I'm not working. I'm still figuring it out. But whereas when I enter into the growth phase, I slowly figure out that okay, my cost per unit can be reduced by optimizing the procedure. What do you call it? The procedures in the process. Okay, at the maturity phase, I have the lowest cost per unit. I have already figured out everything. That's why I'm at the maturity stage. But the problem is there is lack of demand in the market, right? So at each different phase of the production life cycle, product life cycle, the different costs are incurred. Okay, or else the cost per unit incurred is different at different phases. So if I'm following traditional absorption or marginal costing or else ABC also, every period my total cost per unit will be different. Introduction phase cost per unit will be very high. Growth phase cost per unit would be slowly reducing. Maturity phase, it's even slowly reducing and it is at an optimum level. Okay. Sir, if my cost is reducing, I should also reduce the sales price, right? I can reduce the sales price to increase more demand. But can really companies do that? Like every time your cost is changing, I'll change the price of the product also, sir. Does that make sense? Every time my cost changes, I'll change the price. Market doesn't work like that. If you keep fluctuating your sales prices, if you keep changing your sales price, people tend to get, a feeling that you are not stable. Okay, they want matured companies with stability in them. I would not prefer, there is a restaurant, sir. Today I go, they charge 200 rupees per biryani. Tomorrow they say it's 250. Day after tomorrow say they it's 150. Would I prefer to go there? Absolutely no. I'm like, अरे यार इन लोगों को कुछ पता भी नहीं है. They keep changing the prices every day. I'll not be interested to go there much. So we cannot keep changing the price of the product every time our cost changes. That is where life cycle costing will come for your rescue. What life cycle cost does is it is estimating the cost throughout the life of the project, life of the product. So you have a stable cost per unit for the entire life. The same estimated cost per unit what you have calculated upfront itself, you'll follow the same for all the phases. Thereby you have a stable pricing technique. That is the advantage of life cycle costing. But the biggest problem is there are lots of assumptions involved. Sir, what if my assumption goes wrong? You will run into losses. Tell me guys, is the life cycle costing clear for you all? Look at the 5 phases: pre-production or pre-development, that is research and development, then launching or the initial phases, then growth, then maturity, then declining. Each stage, what is happening, they are telling you. You can read that later. I have already covered much of these topics, so you can read it as a later. Designing cost, like during the research and development only we incur all these design cost, which is there. They keep changing this number every time. Okay, in some places they say it is 80%, 85%, 90%. It's just a rough estimate, so it keeps changing. Don't worry about that. You don't need to know the percentage, how much is incurred during the research and development phase. 80 to 90. Go ahead with that. Okay. Now, sir, what is this minimizing the time to market? See, if you know what are the phases involved in your product's life cycle, what are the costs involved in that, if you are well equipped with the information, it becomes easier for you to launch into the market, since you already have all the information that is required. That's what they're trying to tell you. Break even point, we haven't yet discussed it. We'll discuss it in the CVP analysis chapter. After this, then only you'll be able to understand these points. All nonsense only. Okay, look at this particular illustration, ma. We'll move further after this. We'll go to the next technique after this. Throughput accounting will start. Look at this. Illustration 5, life cycle costing. Enrono is an accounting software package which has a 6-year product life cycle. Following are the yearly cost estimated for the entire length of the package's life. See, they're talking about research and development, design phase, production cost, marketing cost, distribution cost, customer service cost, all different types of costs they have given you for 6 years of the life of the product. 275, 120, 120, 200, 200, 100, blah, 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 blah. The life cycle cost for the Enro package can be added up as follows: research and development 275, designing 120, production cost 120, 200, 200, 520. See 520 here. So 125, 170, 130, 60, 360, 485, 485 here. So they just added up all these things and then calculated the life cycle cost. Total life cycle cost is 1560 and divided by the estimated number of units that are to be produced. Life cycle costing clearly takes into consideration all the costs of 1.5 million. Okay, they did not tell you number of units. If you assume that over a span of 6 years, we'll produce 3 million units. So 3 million, this is 1.5 million, 1.5 by 3, 0.5. So it's 50 cents per unit. That is our cost of production, like that, as simple as that. Sir, but you also need to calculate the production cost is considered here. Okay, then cool. I did not see this. Production cost is also this. So total costs are considered. No problem. Okay. Now look at this characteristics, sir. At the introduction phrase, usually if you don't have the life cycle costing, if you don't follow, you'll have higher prices at the introduction phase because your research and development costs are higher. Even your production costs are higher because you are new to the market. Your costs are high, so you'll price it higher. At the growth phase, what happens? You slowly reduce the prices because your costs are coming down. At maturity stage, sales will slow down. Maturity, sales are already slowed down, cost will be already at the optimum level. Decline phase pay, better products appear in the market, so you must cut down the sales costs and other stuff. But if you are following a life cycle costing, you make sure that evenly everything is distributed properly throughout the life of the product. Blah blah blah. Again, another service sector, they gave you a different example. This is a service sector related example. Whatever sector it is, we follow the same technique. There is nothing much involved in that. Okay, that brings us to the end of life cycle costing. See, very rarely questions come out of life cycle costing. Hardly, I guess they may ask you question in the MCQ section, not in the section C. Okay, theoretical questions, I don't think they'll test much in the life cycle costing. I don't think they'll be testing in the section C part of it. But who knows, sir? We can never be fully sure about that. Anything can happen with FCCA. Throughput accounting do we really need to do now? Is that right type to do? How much time? 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay. So throughput accounting. So usually I tell a story for throughput accounting. I don't know. I guess one or two people in this particular batch might have already heard it. Maybe Azim and Tejasvi might know that theory of constraints related story, throughput accounting story. I'm not sure. But anyways, this is a fast track batch, so I'm not going to entertain with stories and all. I'm going to directly jump into the concept. Okay, so what exactly is this throughput accounting all about? Next part of accounting, that is throughput accounting. Next technique. So what are the techniques of costing that we have done till now? Can somebody tell me very quickly? What are the different techniques of costing that we have done till now? Marginal costing, absorption costing, ABC costing, then life cycle costing. 4 costing techniques we have completed till now. Okay, chalo. Then we'll move on to the 5th one, that is throughput accounting. Okay. Now, what is this throughput accounting all about, sir? Please understand, under marginal costing, we go with the variable cost, material cost, labor cost, variable overheads. There is a branch of, experts. There are a good amount of people, a bunch of people who believe that even variable overheads are not really always variable. They believe that the true variable costs, in essence, only the prime cost is the truly variable in any business. Even some of the variables are not really variable. They don't really are not always based upon the volume of production. Okay, so they believe that only the prime cost is truly variable. Now, what is prime cost, sir? Material cost plus labor. Do you remember? Material cost plus labor. Only these two are truly variable. And then there are some other people who believe that, sir, even labor cannot be considered as a truly variable cost. Some people believe that, why should we consider labor as a truly variable cost? No, because I pay the labor on an hourly basis or on a weekly basis or whatever it is. Periodical basis only I pay my labor. So whether they are producing 1,000 units or 10,000 units, or what happens if there is material blackout? Suddenly you run out of raw materials, sir. Will you stop paying the labor? Obviously no. You have to keep paying the labor even when there is no material. So some people believe that, some people argue that even labor cost is not truly variable. That means it does not vary based on the number of units of production. Even in case of labor also, there might be slight differences. So that is where throughput accounting comes into the picture. So there are a certain branch of costing experts. They say that don't even consider labor. Consider labor also as a factory cost, not as a product cost. So they say that don't calculate contributions, calculate throughput. What exactly is this throughput, sir? Throughput is nothing but the sales price minus the material cost alone. Only the material cost, not even labor. Not even labor. They say only material cost is the truly variable cost. It truly depends upon the number of units that you are producing. If you produce 1,000 units, equal amount of raw material is used. If you produce 10,000 units, more raw material is used. 10 times raw material is used. So it's the truly variable factor. That material is the only truly variable factor. All the rest of the costs are called as factory costs. This is where throughput accounting starts. Its essence is that only material cost is considered as the truly variable cost. Rest of the costs are all related to the factory costs. And now understand that any organization will have certain limiting factors. What is it? Limiting factors. or else I can say scarce resources, resources which are available in a limited quantity or a limited units, or we can also call them as bottleneck resources. Okay, so what exactly do we mean by limited factors, scarce resource, or bottleneck resources? You know, there could be limited availability of raw material, or else number of labor hours are only this much. You cannot get more than this many number of labor hours, or else it could be that you know, machine hours, labor hours, raw material, anything is restricting your activity levels, that is called as a scarce resource or limited resource or a bottleneck resource. Okay, let me tell you an example, then we'll move further. So in our factory, for example, our production process, the flow of the activities are like this. First, raw material is put into machine A. Okay, machine A, and then that raw material is going through the machine A, then it will go through machine B, then you will get some semi-finished product. The labor will do the assembly work or something like that, and then it is sent into machine C, for example. So machine raw material is put into machine A to machine B, then labor will do the assembly process and then put it into machine C. From machine C, you will get the finished good. This is our processor. Now, in this process, machine A per hour can have a maximum capacity of 25,000 units. It can process maximum 25,000 units. Machine B can process only 20,000 units. Labor, they can process only 15,000 units per hour. Machine C is very huge, and so it can process again 25,000 units per hour. Okay, now see what is happening here, sir. Even if I introduce 25,000 raw materials every hour, machine A will process that 25. But when it goes to machine B, now here it can only process 20,000. That means 5,000 units are lagging behind. 5,000 units lagging behind. Again, I'll send it to labor. Again, 5,000 units I'll lag behind. But again, when I go to machine C, it has surplus capacity, so no problem. So what actually happens is, per hour, if I'm talking about 1 hour of activity, because of my labor, I can produce only a maximum of 15,000 units. Even though other machineries have the capacity of 25,000, I cannot produce that much because my labor is restricting my maximum activity level to 15,000. I cannot produce more than this. So here, this 15,000 is called as the bottleneck resource. Labor is called as the bottleneck in this particular example, sir. You're able to understand this, right? Now, what are we supposed to do? Once we understand that there is a bottleneck in our factory, then what are we supposed to do, sir? So what we'll try to do is we will hire more labor. Hire more labor. Increase this to 20,000. Then machine 25,000. Then machine B will become the limiting factor or the bottleneck resource. Then what you will do? You will replace machine B or you will enhance the capacity of that machine. So once we do this, step 1, hire more labor. Step 2, enhance machine B's capacity to 25,000. Then all of them will work on 25,000 basis. Then we'll not have any more bottleneck resources. So these steps keep repeating. Identify a bottleneck resource, enhance the bottleneck resource, again identify another bottleneck resource, again enhance it. So this process keeps rotating like this. Okay, it's a circular process. Sir, what is the only bottleneck that we cannot rectify or that we cannot enhance? Demand for the product. Is the ultimate bottleneck. You can not go over and above your demand, sir. What will you do? What will you do? Your product is having 10,000 units of demand. What will you do by producing 20,000? Nothing. It's just waste of money and waste of Overheads, again, you'll have to store that, and running out of stock, all that nonsense will happen. Sorry, not running out of stock, expiry dates, all that nonsense will be there, right? Demand will be your ultimate overheads, ultimate bottleneck, which you cannot resolve. But the problem that is there, and the something that you need to keep in mind, is that it's not always in the best interest of the company to enhance the capacities. It's not always in the best interest of the company to enhance the capacities or eliminate the bottlenecks. Sometimes we need to ignore those bottlenecks and limit our capacities. Sir, why, sir? Because it's not economical for the company to do that. Let me tell you something here. How many units extra will I get by enhancing my mission B? Sir, labor I'm paying, labor I'm hiring more labor, and I have hired more labor, and the labor capacity has been increased to 25,000 units. No problem, sir. Now I'll have to replace mission B with a better mission, or I'll have to enhance this capacity. If I enhance this capacity, how much benefit will I get? 5,000 units, correct? Maximum benefit that I get is 5,000 units additional. 5,000, yes, Azim says 5,000, correct, sir. Okay, now this 5,000 extra capacity, if one unit is giving me $20 profit, sir, over the lifetime, not for one period or 1 week or 1 month, over the lifetime, every additional unit in the capacity can generate $20 profit for me. So 5,000 into $20, that's $100,000. Okay, sir, the enhancement cost of this mission B is, let's say, 120,000. To increase the capacity from 20 to 25, you need to incur 125,000. You'll get a benefit of only 100,000. So tell me, will you do that? So why would you want to lose $20,000? Rather stick to the existing levels now. Cost versus benefit analysis. Okay. Chalo, let's see this. Throughput is considered as the sales revenue minus the direct material cost. Only material is considered to be the truly variable resource, and all of the rest of the things are called as factory costs. Okay, so in the long run, the bottleneck should be eliminated and all that stuff. All these things are there. You don't need to worry about it. I already explained all of these things. See, this is what the main assumption is, that the only totally variable cost in the short term is the purchase cost of raw material and their purchase from external suppliers. Labor costs are also not variable in the short term. Many employees are salaried, and even if paid at a rate per unit, are usually guaranteed a minimum weekly wages. This is what I discussed, right? Even that is not truly variable. Labor cost is also not truly variable. So GNC, the process of theory of constraints, if you see, theory of constraints is the name given for this particular theorem that we just explained. So identify the system's bottleneck, decide how to exploit the bottleneck. How should we enhance that? Like, should we replace the mission? Should we hire more labor? Or should we enhance the existing capacities by introducing more repairs and maintenance or something like that? How do we tackle the bottleneck? How do we exploit the bottleneck? Subordinate everything else to the decision in the step 2. Based on that, how does the rest of the factors, rest of the resources work? Elevate the system's bottleneck, and then if the previous step has created another bottleneck, then go back to step 1 and repeat the entire cycle. Nonsense. Okay, let's do this question now. This is very easy question. Should not take more than 10 minutes for me, but since I'm explaining, it may take 5 minutes extra. But let's see. It should not take even 5 minutes if I'm doing it myself. Let's do this. Come on, Excel. Don't give us hand. What are you doing? Come on. Yes. Okay. Chalo, let's start. So demand for a product made by P Limited is 500 units per week. So first line itself giving me the ultimatum. Maximum demand is given as 500 units. Okay. Then the product is made in 3 consecutive processes: process A, B, and C. Okay. Process A, process B, and process C. I have 3 processes. Capacity per week. Capacity of A is 400, 300, and 250. Okay, so here bottleneck I can observe is how much? Bottleneck is resource C. I can produce a maximum of 250 units only. I can even go with min of these three values. If I'm not interested in doing it manually, I can use the Excel formula minimum of C5 to E5, whichever is the lowest. Okay, then the long run benefit of P Limited of increasing sales of its product is a present value of $25,000 per every additional unit sold per week. Okay, incremental benefit. Incremental benefit per unit is how much? $25,000. Okay. Then investigations have revealed the following possibilities. What is the first one? Invest in a new machine for process A, which will increase its capacity to 550 units per week. Sir, currently what is the capacity of A? 400. You can increase it to 550, but it will cost you $1,000,000. But God bless your soul. Why do I want to even increase product A's capacity, process A capacity, sir? My bottleneck is C. First, I would want to eliminate bottleneck in C, not in B or A. Second one is replace the machine in process B with an upgraded machine. I don't want to upgrade B. Already B is having 300. C is limiting my production to 250. I have to enhance C, not A or not B. It will cost me 1.5 million. It will double the capacity. Okay, fine. Buy an additional machine for process C costing $2 million. This will increase capacity in C by 300 units per week. Okay, this is something that I need to evaluate. Buy an additional machine for process C costing 2 million. This will increase capacity in C by 300 units per week. But what is the P Limited's best course of action? The above options are not mutually exclusive. So your answer should consider combinations as well as looking at them individually. Sir, very good. They're telling you you can go for combinations of these three options also. Sir, but first I'll go with option 3 only, right? So what is this? Additional mission in C. Okay. So if I enhance if I put an additional mission in the process C, what will be the new capacities? A and B will remain same, 400, 300. This will increase capacity in C by 300 units. It will increase by further 300. Okay, that means 250 plus 300 additional. So what will be my bottleneck capacity now? New bottleneck capacity is answer, guys. Answer faster. What will be my new bottleneck? B will be my new bottleneck. So I can my new bottleneck capacity will be 300. Okay. So how much increase is there in the capacity? From 250 we have increased it to 300. So 50 is the increase in the capacity. Additional revenue and cost of enhancement net result. Okay. Yes, Tejasvi. Yes. Increase to 550. Huh? Yes, for C. They told you, if you add a new mission, buy an additional mission for process C, this will increase the capacity in C by 300 units. Already we have 250 capacity. It will increase by 300 units. So total becomes 515 mission C. But then your maximum capacity will be 300 only because B can process only 300 per week. Is that clear? Okay, chalo. Now what is the additional revenue generated, sir? For this 50 units extra capacity, each unit is going to give me 25,000. So 50 into 25, 1.25 million. What is the cost of enhancement of C? It is going to cost me 2 million. So what's the net result? You'll get 125, but you will have to spend 200. So you are gonna spend extra $750,000 without recovering that. It's a useless decision. I mean, it's a loss-making decision. So we will not enhance mission CMA. There is no point in enhancing mission C. Okay. Next, second technique is replacing both C and B. We will replace both C and B. That is the next second step. B and C together. Now what will happen? A will remain the same, 400. If I enhance capacity in B, replace the machine in process B with an upgraded machine costing 1.5 million, this will double the capacity of process B. So double 300 into 2, double is 600. And for machine C, it will be increased by 300 units per week. So 250 plus 300. Okay, so bottleneck will be, now A is becoming the bottleneck, which is good. B and C both are enhancing the overall capacity. Increase in capacity from the original would be 400 minus 250. That means 150 is the increase in capacity. Additional revenue will be 150 into 25,000 per each unit. That's 3.75 million. What is the cost of enhancement? 1.5 for mission B, 2 million for mission C. So plus 2 million, 3.5 million. So the net result, additional revenue is 3.75, cost is 3.5. So we get a net profit of 250,000 if we replace both B and C. Good. Let me just take this and paste it here and remove this line. Delete it. Okay. Then replace all three machines. That is the next option, right? So if I invest in a new machine for process A, which will increase its capacity to 550. My 400 will become 550. Please be careful about the prepositions. It's 550 by 300. Please be very careful. Now it will become 550 here, and B will be increased double. So I'll go with 600 and 550. So my bottleneck will be mission C again. I mean process C again. That is 550. Enhancement in the capacity 550 minus 250. Additional revenue 300 units into 25,000. Cost of enhancement would be 1 million, 1.5 million and 2 million. Okay, 1 million plus 1.5 million plus 2 million, 4.5 million. So additional revenue would be $3 million. So it's better if we replace mission B and mission C if we don't have sufficient money. If we have sufficient money, if we can spend 4.5 million, then replace all the three missions or else enhance all the three processes. If you don't have 4.5 million, if you have only 3.5, replace B and C. Sir, what if I don't even have 3.5? Then don't do anything. Don't just enhance mission C because you'll just get a loss. You'll have to enhance both processes B and C together minimum. Then only you'll get a profit. Is this clear, guys? Sir, see, I don't know why people keep telling that your this thing, what is it? Computer based exam is very difficult, sir, and all that stuff. If the same calculations, if I'm doing on pen and paper, now it would have taken me 20 minutes to do it. I did it in 5 minutes. It literally took me 5 minutes to solve this. Computer based is the best. If you know how to use computers, that's a different story. If you know how to use computer based is the best. Okay. Not next. Then how do we calculate throughput calculations? These are very, very chiller calculations, ma. So we will very fastly go through this. So first of all, throughput. How do we calculate throughput? Sales minus material cost. Okay. So how do I calculate throughput per unit? Per unit, or throughput per factory hour, whatever you want to call it. Throughput per factory hour. TP by number of hours. Whatever it is, I guess it's throughput per factory hour only, no? Okay, throughput per factory hour. Number of hours. Throughput by number of hours. Then factory cost per factory hour. Total factory costs divided by number of hours. Okay, then throughput ratio. Throughput accounting ratio, ma. This is also called as throughput accounting ratio, TAR. This is TP per factory hour divided by factory cost per factory hour, or else I can directly do it as throughput divided by factory costs. Sir, simple concept, ma. If my throughput is $20 per hour, I can get a profit of $20 per hour, and my factory costs are including labor are $18 per each hour. I'm earning $20 per hour. I'm spending $18 per hour. Is it good for me or bad for me? Good, sir. I earn $2 per every hour. So basically, if your throughput accounting ratio is more than 1, that is good for the company. If 20 is more than 18, then obviously 20 by 18 will be more than 1. So if your TPR is if your TAR, throughput accounting ratio, is better than 1, it is favorable. Your company is running in profits. If throughput accounting ratio is less than 1, that means you are unfavorable. If your throughput accounting ratio is equal to 1, that means you are break even. Your costs and your profits are exactly equal, so you are breaking even. Okay, simple, ma. Nothing is there in this. Dummy questions, these are all. Throughput per factory hour, cost per factory hour, then throughput accounting ratio, return per factory hour by cost per factory hour. Common sense nonsense only, nothing is there. If it is more than 1, good. If it is less than 1, bad. Okay, look at this question. 2 minutes we have. Very quickly, let's solve this. Only 2 minutes. X Limited manufactures a product that requires 1.5 hour of machining. Machining time is a bottleneck resource due to the limited number of machines available. 10 machines available, and each machine can be used for 40 hours per week. So 10 machines into 40 hours per week. So 10 into 40, 400 machine hours are available maximum. Each unit is going to take me 1.5 hour. Okay. The product is sold for $85 per unit. Direct material cost is 42.5. Okay. 85 minus 42.5 is 42.5. Total factory costs are 8,000 each week. What is the return per factory hour? Sir, what is the throughput? 85 minus 42.5, that's 42.5. It's going to take 1.5 hour for me for each unit. So 42.5 divided by 1.5. 85 minus 42.5 divided by 1.5. Per hour we are getting 28.33, correct? Come on guys, 28.33. Return per factory hour. Throughput per factory hour. Did everybody get that or still doubt? Oh, 1.42, you did the throughput accounting ratio. Okay. 28.33 is the return per factory hour. Then what is the cost per factory hour? Total factory costs are 8,000 each week. What are the total number of hours? 10 machines into 40 hours. So 10 into 40 is 400. 8,000 divided by 400, that is 20. So 28.33 divided by 20. 1.4165 something. 1.42. Yes. That's the throughput accounting ratio. Is it clear, everybody? Guys, everybody wants confirm, is it clear?